Okay, we're live, We're live, Patrick?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome to the Public Utilities Commission meeting of May 7th at 3 p.m. 2025. I will call the meeting to order. We'll do a roll call. Uh, Present, I see we have Scott Warner, the wastewater treatment superintendent. We have Charles Hathaway. We have Patrick McKnight, and we have Mike Roth and myself, Craig Schulte. Is anybody else that I'm missing? I don't think so. Is that everybody in the room?
That's everybody. Not much of a crowd.
Okay, we're all here. All right. Well, I guess I would call for approval of the agenda as it is presented. Um,
Move to approve.
Move to approve, Charles, and I will second it. So that motion passes. And the first item on the agenda that we're gonna have a discussion on is the water plant control modification. And I guess we need to do some work to that to make it function better. And I think Scott may be able to explain that better than what I know about that.
Yes, what's going on is that cabinet control system was put in roughly 5, 6 years ago, something like that. And what we need to do is work a bunch of the bugs out of the system. There's things that were never set up properly when it was commissioned way back then, and we've added some new things that we need to bring in. And so between the combination of fixing bugs that should have been warranty items years ago, we have to pay for now, and then between the old things and then getting some of the new things brought in, we're looking at roughly a week's worth of programming. Quality Flow put the cabinet in, and they're really the only ones that can program the PLC that's in there, the computer. And so I am asking that we go with up to a week of programming from Quality Flow for $17,680, and that would cover the week of programming, travel, hotel, etc., and also there's a couple $1,000s in parts that need to be installed to expand the system so that we can add some of the new stuff.
How is it that there's only one company that can program it? That doesn't seem right.
They
installed it, but still.
That is a valid concern, and what we're trying to do is I want to get it set up so that way I can do programming from this laptop plugged into their equipment, and I need to know what their password is. And so once I've got the password, that opens it up to if another company can program those proprietary PLCs, then I'll have all the stuff I need right here, or they can just take over my laptop and they can go right in and program.
Yeah, but wait, I mean, they set this up and they're not going to give us the password for it? That doesn't seem right. I mean,
they will when I push them for that password, because I want to
Well, it's kind of.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
Because we own the equipment and stuff, and I know how to do programming on different brands of PLCs.
Yeah.
And so I want to be able to go in and make changes. So I need to know that password.
Right, but that's what's in the way right now?
That's one of the things that's in the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just asking, I mean, I totally get that. And they may be the best people to do it because they're familiar with the equipment or whatever else, but it just seems wrong that they did the installation and programmed it on our behalf and won't give us the password, or haven't given us the password?
They haven't given us the password.
So we just didn't ask for it?
At this point in time, that's where I believe it is we have not asked for it yet. And So once they're up here doing the work that they need to do, because I need to learn this PLC.
Yeah,
And so that's gonna take way more than what I have time for immediately.
yeah,
And so it's the most cost effective for them to do what we need to do immediately. And then as time comes up and small things come up, then I can learn how to do the small things.
yeah.
These are some bigger things that we
Yeah.
need to do.
And so is it the case that nothing, no changes, no reprogramming, no modifications have been made since the thing was originally installed 5 years ago?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
So there's probably some upgrades that this gentleman can do that it needs, other than just getting it to work correctly, or is there more to it?
At this point in time, like, there could be firmware updates or something like that that we might
Right.
consider doing, but because this computer is not on the internet of any sort, it's not connected anywhere,
Okay.
they're really not necessary.
Right.
When
Well, that's the other- that's-
eventually,
Yeah, well, that's the other question I was gonna ask you is, if it was, after he's done doing this, if it was connected to the internet, anything that needs to be done to it, they can't access remotely then, can they?
if,
You know what I'm saying?
once we put it on the internet, if, in time, when we put it on the internet, when we do the wastewater treatment plant upgrade,
Yeah.
I want to combine the water plant SCADA, the wastewater plant SCADA, and all the lift stations into one computer program. And then once we get that stuff done, which we're talking years from now because we got funding issues
Yeah.
to begin
Yeah.
with. But once that is done, my goal is to have everything so that way whomever needs access to it can get the remote access to it. They can go right straight into the PLCs with the appropriate clearances and credentials and all that happiness. And they will be
Right.
able to make changes remotely for us if we ask them to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just kind of familiar with how it worked when I had the gas station. We had Radiant, was a product that they made, and you can only buy Radiant from Radiant. You can't buy it from anybody else. And so you have to buy it from Radiant, and then they only authorize certain people to work on it.
Yes.
And so, yeah, Charles, there is stuff like that going on out there.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
proprietary, and you're not allowed to touch it if it breaks. It's kind of funny how that works.
But it
But-
sounds like we will be able to, once, after these guys are gone, I mean, after they come up and do their work and get supply the password and you get more familiar with it, we'll be able to make some of the modifications ourselves, and perhaps another company as well could,
That's the goal, yes. That is the goal.
Yeah.
because it does seem like
Okay.
they have us over a barrel a little bit.
Feels
Yeah.
like,
What's that?
it feels like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does feel like that.
yeah. What do they get?
It would be nice. Yeah. It'd be nice to have all these points you've made here functioning
Yes,
To-
definitely.
to make your job a little easier as far as being able to take care of other things.
That's also
Right.
another goal, yes.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
was curious, what do they get for per diem? They mentioned that on here, this including the per diem. Did they break
They
that
just
up?
gave me a lump sum
Yeah,
for up to a week. And if we only need them for 3 days, they'll bill accordingly.
okay.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
Okay. So it's, as I see it, it's something we need to have done. So, I guess I'm going to ask for a motion to either approve or not approve,
Okay,
the $17,680 a week programming to get this, water treatment plant up to running the way it needs to run. So I guess I'd ask for a motion.
I want to ask one more question before,
Good.
in this kind of situation, we push back on the price? We say, boy, that's good, we need the work done, but that seems like kind of a lot.
A lot of it really boils down to travel time and just the room and board type, staying at a hotel
Yeah,
during, higher demand seasons.
right.
So a lot of that is plus the couple $1,000s in parts that we need to install. So crude math, that's a third of it.
Right.
It's between room and board and the parts. And the rest is the technician's time.
Hourly rate, yeah.
But
I
you're,
think the desire to push back on it is more about, shouldn't some of this have been done when they originally installed it?
yeah,
Which, if
Yeah,
I felt more
that's a-
confident about that leverage, I'd be happy to try and use it. But
Yeah.
I don't think we really have the ability to go back in time and understand the story clearly enough
Yeah.
to say why those choices were made.
yeah,
So I think we've got a good goal in mind here, which is we're going to have the system operating exactly the way we want it. We're going to learn how to change the programming ourselves, and we're going to gain the ability to do that.
yeah,
And those are all good things. So we need to have that.
yeah,
Well said.
yeah. Okay, well, I'll move to accept the
Proposal.
I guess it's their proposal that we're accepting, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That's a proposal. It's not really that's, what am I looking at? A quote, bid, proposal.
It's an
That's,
estimate.
that's pretty, in a nutshell, that's pretty much what it's gonna cost if it takes them a week.
That's right.
It's kind of, okay, all right. All right, well, I'll second that with Charles, and all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Motion carries to get Quality Flow up here to do some programming and some work on the water treatment plant for Scott. And hopefully this takes care of a lot of headaches.
Or, and we can,
Things that have been going on.
I think Mike Roth has room at his place. I think we should just offer to put him up there and save a lot of money.
I was thinking just tell them to bring a camper.
Yeah.
They can
There's
just
a-
leave
there's
it in the
a-
parking lot
there's a-
next to the water treatment plant.
Yeah. Well,
There's a real accessible campsite right next to that water
Yeah,
plant. You know?
exactly.
We'll give them a real good deal
Yeah.
since they're going to just bill us back
And
for it
then they
anyway.
can stay as long as they want.
Yeah, right.
All right.
I do have a
All right.
Me too.
Well, let's move on to the next topic is the wastewater sludge management. Apparently, let's see, I got the wrong page. Here we go. I guess that's another Scott question. What's going on at the wastewater? And it sounds like you may have got a solution for that.
Yes.
So go ahead, Scott.
So
Yeah.
a little bit of background to that. There've been a couple of sewer extensions that the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency approved, but they put some language in there that was kind of derogatory almost toward the city and for how the wastewater how the wastewater plant has been run in times past. And so it may lead in time to us not being able to do sewer extensions, but we're trying to head off things before it gets to that issue. And we can cover some of the details in a bit. So anyway, what we looked at the last couple of years, and there were 29 exceedances, and almost all of them are related to sludge handling in the clarifier.
So exceedances of what exactly?
Of our national, or our wastewater permit,
Permit limits.
Right, but
Yeah.
I mean permit limits on with respect to what parameters?
sludge, it's total solids,
Total solids in the discharge?
yes.
That's most of them.
Discharge to the lake?
To the lake, yes.
Okay.
And so we reviewed what we're doing and figured out ways of how we can make it better operationally for us. The way we adjust those, the way the solids is we've got some manual timers that we have to turn dials. And so what I did was I took the flow for the day, and we want to return that same quantity of flow back into the biological treatment. So if we bring in 500,000 gallons of water from the city, well, we want to return 500,000 gallons back into the biological treatment. and then 500,000 would leave the plant.
Okay,
And so we're always gonna have the same amount of liquid going in as going out, but we wanna cycle that same quantity back through the plant.
right. Recirculate the
Yes,
sludge, basically.
we're recirculating the bacteria that does the work for us, that gets rid of the dissolved stuff in the wastewater.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, once, the plant was designed for the normal flows of up to 1 million gallons. And so we can return up to 1 million gallons in a day. And that's what we try to do. So as long as we're under 1 million gallons, we can manage the sludge very well.
Mm-hmm. So let's see, I'm looking at your memo. Amount of time to pump is set manually by staff. And so, so then why, so I don't get why there were the exceedances? What would you say was the cause of the exceedances? What were we doing, like, wrong or differently anyways?
What we were doing differently before my time was, well, previous leadership.
Yeah,
It was pumping the water, pumping sludge out of the clarifiers and pulling it out like an hour or two a week. And the way you're supposed to manage those solids is you're supposed to work with them constantly throughout the day. And so, yeah, that's what the timers are there for. So when I first arrived, I changed out the timers because they were acting weird.
okay.
And so I got the timers working, and so now we're able to run things more automatically. And the textbook answer is, if you pump sludge at the same rate that you're returning, or that's the same rate that what's coming in, and then in time you're going to build up sludge, and so you want to pull some of that out. We call that wasting.
Yeah,
And so you waste some of that material, that sludge, into a holding tank, and we deal with that later.
that goes up to the sanitary district, up to Duluth, right?
That goes to Duluth,
Eventually.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, okay, so just so I understand it, so you fix the timers, and now the timers are operating like on a cycle. They pull water periodically rather
Yes.
than never, or
Rather than once a week, twice a week, something like that.
so this is several times a day now. Is that how
It
works?
is, it could be twice an hour.
Okay.
Depending on flow, I'm guessing.
Yes, depends on flow. So if,
Well, as flow increases in the summer, you're gonna have to monitor it more. And how does G&G Septic communicate with you on when they're releasing their product?
they
Do
usually
you need that?
don't.
I'm just seeing, do you need that communication, or would that help you?
That communication usually doesn't help. It's usually not necessary, simply because they're not giving us hundreds of thousands of gallons of water. They might be
Right.
giving us 20,000 gallons in a day. It's not
Okay.
a great quantity in relation.
Okay.
It's less than 10% of our flow. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
In a day,
Volume-wise.
volume-wise in a day.
And what we're talking about today is volume-based timing.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
What Scott's doing different is it's a lot more fine-grained control on when the pumps are operating. So rather than one lump sum every week that may or may not be related to the actual flows that occur,
Yeah.
it's regular
Right.
monitoring of the flow and adjusting the timing of the pumps on a
Does-
far
does-
more frequent basis to deal with that.
It's like the recirculation pumps. Is what you're
Yes.
talking about.
yep.
Okay.
What does this mean in your memo? In the past 6 months, the only limit exceedance was for total annual accumulation.
In our permit, we are allowed what's called a mass limit. So they give us a certain mass in kilograms, and we have to stay below that number.
Mass, this would be mass of
Solids
TDS
included.
discharged
Yes.
to the lake,
Total solids discharged, yes.
right?
And so we, because of past practices, we exceeded
that mass limit.
that mass limit.
You hit that limit in September, then it's an exceedance in September and October
Right.
and November and
And
December.
December, yes.
And so the only ones that we have on this list of 29 in the past 12 months that were in the past 6 months are those that were already hit by September. So we're taking that to mean that the changes Scott's implementing are effective, that they have prevented us from having any additional limit exceedances.
So
Is that reported?
I don't get it. So
Is that reported to them? Sorry, go ahead, Charles.
So there have been limit exceedances recently or not?
Not.
Not since last year?
Yeah.
Is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so with
Okay.
the new regimen, we are avoiding that situation.
We're avoiding that situation, yes.
Yes.
And you would be able to track it probably and say, well, okay, starting in January, it's annual, right?
Yes.
January?
Yeah.
So starting in January, you say, well, there's this much in January. The graph keeps going up, right? And so
We have monthly limits and monthly reporting.
right.
Yes.
And so one
Okay.
of the limits that they look at, even on monthly reports, is your total annual accumulation.
Yeah.
So they're counting an exceedance on a monthly basis, even if it's a total annual accumulation, they're still counting on it on a monthly basis from the month you hit it until you're done.
Yeah.
Well, the point we're trying to make is, whereas the MPCA's communication in the permits is a story about this might be a problem on an ongoing basis, we're looking at it and saying, we think it was a temporary problem that's fixed.
Right. Through more more careful management,
Yeah,
I guess.
just a different strategy of how we're managing it.
Yeah. And what's the MPCA's attitude at this point? Are they going to fine us, or they?
No.
No.
And they're results based, so they don't have an attitude. If we don't exceed our limit, they're happy.
Yep.
Yeah, but we did exceed the limits, right?
We did, but we're reporting on a monthly basis now. We're not, and so what we want to avoid is that what they're suggesting is really an issue on permit, and more extension permits, that they think there might be some kind of problem related to
Too much volume.
too much volume. And frankly, that's just not the case. Even with our plant in the age and condition it is, and knowing that we really do have quite a bit of work we want to do in there,
Yeah.
it's not because of the volume that's going into it. It was clearly because of an operational choice we were making.
Yeah.
And because we see the results, like we changed the way we're operating, and we're no longer exceeding those limits.
Yeah.
We weren't before, so this is a blip in the radar, and we're confident that we've got it figured out.
Yeah. And so, so the extension issue, that is a matter of incoming volume, right? So they're like, that is to say, every extension results in additional incoming volume to
Yes.
the plant.
It would.
And so at some point the 1 MGD does, it's we butt up against that, but what are we right now? I mean, we're well below 1 MGD, right? So
The big issue is with our flows, it all depends on how much water is in the ground.
because
If
of
we're wet,
infiltration.
if we have a big rainstorm or the snow melt and a rain, then we get a lot of water coming in, extra water coming in. We call that I&I, inflow and infiltration.
Right.
In the pipes, in manholes, etc. There might be direct connects from sump pumps, roof leaders,
Sure.
from the gutters, etc.
Right.
So there's a whole number of things that could be contributing to the total flow. And I don't know if you saw the weekly update that was put out.
I saw, but I don't remember part of that.
Well, anyway, we found a couple of manholes that water is just pouring into them. And so I'm gonna need to get those fixed. So that way it will decrease the total amount of rainwater, groundwater that gets into the system.
Did you
Yes.
mention the volume in the weekly update that we had on a daily basis?
I did not.
I mean, we were over 1 million gallons a day a couple of times due to the rain in the past few weeks. And that's a regular occurrence in the springtime for us to have sometimes where we're dealing with over 1 million gallons a day.
Yeah.
because of inflow and infiltration of pretty clean rainwater. So it's a totally different issue than suspended solids getting into the lake, except for the fact that exceeding 1 million gallons a day makes it harder for us to handle the sludge. It doesn't bring more sludge into the plant, though.
Sure.
It brings more clean water into the plant.
Right.
The typical amount that we're dealing with is about 500,000 a day or less.
So
we're
middle of
not-
summer, even high tourist season.
even high tourist season, the volume is not the issue. I mean, the ability to deal with the solids is more today than it was 10 years ago, but still, that's not really the issue. And what the MPCA is concerned about exceedances, it doesn't have anything to do with the volume that's coming in or adding more customers.
Yeah.
And I mean, they do have a point about I&I, that any system has to deal with that, and we don't, we're constantly working on that issue, but adding new pipe and new customers doesn't contribute to that. That's good, tight, not leaky stuff.
Right.
It's the old stuff where we find the issues.
Yeah. No, and my question was mainly, are we near that 1 MGD limit on account of additional extensions or extensions that we're foreseeing in the future? It sounds like not.
Not.
Right.
Yeah, the plant was built when it was last reconstructed for significant growth in the community, and there's been some growth in the community, but not significant.
Yeah. Yet.
Yeah. There's room for more growth.
Okay.
So
Well,
this is-
thank you, Scott. Well, go ahead. No, that was, I'm glad you're working hard to clarify that information and get that fixed. That was, good to have you around, I guess. For
Thank you.
sure.
It is good, and it's a good thing that
Yeah.
that this was brought out. Like, we wanted to talk to you about it because we want to make sure that everybody understands what's happening here. Everybody, you and the public and everybody else, that we don't see this as a systemic, ongoing problem. This is a operational issue that we've
Yeah.
got a handle on now.
Yeah. I'm just
Okay.
curious, do you have to communicate with the PCA? Is it like, hey, guys, don't worry, we got this under control? How does that, what happens there?
I am in communication with our inspector,
Yeah.
and so she knows the things that we're doing.
Yeah. And it's like, good for you. It's under
Yep.
control. Good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always
We still get to submit the report every month.
Sure.
And
yes.
it's either we exceed or we don't, and we do not.
Yeah, good communication with the state is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. Okay, well, thank you, Scott, for that, information. The other, item we have is, any other items, I guess. If Charles has any other items or if Mike has any other items, I do have one that I would like to bring up. But, go ahead, if anybody else has any.
Yeah, I don't have anything at this time.
Nothing here.
Just a
Okay.
couple of minor updates. The wastewater plant, or sorry, the water plant roof is in the process of being redone.
Oh, yeah,
They
Yeah.
need to, the new rubber membrane is put on, and we put in lifting eyes. So that way we can remove the 2 raw water pumps and the 3 finished water pumps. And so I worked with the engineers to get those lifting eyes installed and how to do it. And then the roofers, because we had to go through the ceiling out into the air. And so the roofers were able to, I coordinated with the roofers so that way they were able to put the new membrane over the top of the bolts essentially. And so now we're ready to remove a couple of pumps that are going to be needing to be worked on.
Well, the lifting guys are inside the building, but you're going to hook a chain to them.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, these pumps are about 18 feet long,
okay,
and we have about 13 feet of working room. So it needs somebody skilled in pump disassembly and coordination to be able to lift the pumps up, take them apart, and then still be able to get the bottom part of the pump out and then set the rest of the pump out as well.
Yep. Yeah. And this, you're talking about down at the plant, right?
down at the water plant,
Yeah,
yes.
Interesting. Well, that's a good improvement, seems like.
Yeah, it'll be a good improvement, you know. Two of the pumps right now pump, the ones that feed the filter, so they take the raw water out of the lake.
Yep.
Two of them together put out the same amount as one pump when it was new. So the pumps have about 50% efficiency now.
Okay.
Why would that be?
Age,
Just wear out.
they're just worn out.
They spin slower, or the impellers are?
The impellers are worn out. And they're not, the impellers have lost their efficiencies.
Yeah. So is that on the docket to replace those?
Yep.
Rebuild the pumps or rebuild the pumps.
Yeah, we've got a spare that we're gonna install.
Yeah,
And then
wasn't
take
it-
one of the old ones out and figure out if it's rebuildable and do that.
Yeah, wasn't the story that there was a spare been sitting there for 20 years and never used or something like this?
Not sure how long we've had it, and I'm not even sure if that was what it was for, but
I didn't hear that.
what's the origin story of our spare pump?
It was purchased when the plant was redone. Because I've got drawings for all
Yeah.
three of the raw water pumps.
Well, that's more than 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's been sitting there.
For 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we checked it, everything spins freely inside that spare pump. So it's in good shape.
It should be.
Yep, it should be.
Yeah. Huh. So put that in, pull out the other one, see if you can fix it.
Yep.
And then figure out what's next, yeah. What, just while we're on the topic, what was how did things turn out with, lining the filter chambers and relining the channel, right?
Yeah, we relined the influent channel,
Yeah.
the incoming channel, and that worked good. It did not catch all the leaks. There are leaks that are in the rest of the filter. And so we are gonna need to do phase 2 in time. I'm kind of leaning towards winter of '26, because we are gonna need to pull the sand out of that filter. We're going to need to inspect the under drain system, and I'm not sure what that's gonna entail. And then we'll need to recoat we need to repair and then recoat the rest of the filter.
The inside of the filter, yeah.
Yeah,
So we'll need to have a period of time where we can be at half capacity while we figure out
Again,
what we need to do.
yeah,
Which in the wintertime is totally doable.
yeah.
Yep.
Unless somebody wants to fill up the YMCA pool.
Even then, they just have to coordinate with us.
yes, even that, yep. In fact, the Y did do some work on that pool within the last month. And they were filling at about 35 or 40 gallons a minute. And we had no problems with it.
Yeah. No, I was part of that.
Yep.
Part of that operation. So, yeah. And there's 2 filters, right? 2 sand filters.
There's 2 sand
Yeah.
filters, yes.
But it's just one of them that seems problematic.
One of them seems problematic because they share a common center wall. Water can go both directions. And so that center wall is part of the original filter. And so it will need to have some work done to it to seal it up both sides, so that way we don't have concrete issues in the future.
Okay. Thanks for the report.
Yeah, thank you, sir. The only the only other topic that I guess I'm bringing before the PUC, and maybe I don't really need to, but I think maybe it's more of a city coordination with the park board. I guess we did have our meeting yesterday, and a member of the Lions Club came before us requesting the possibility of looking into increasing the amperage of the downtown, what am I trying to say, downtown
Charging station?
park.
The Harbor Park outlets for.
Yeah, Harbor Park outlets. There apparently last year was a problem with not having enough amperage down there. And I don't know if it's part of the city to look, I mean, maybe we should look at that. Is what can we do as our staff to, if we have to trench and put in new, I think they got a quote for doing it, but I don't think it ever was, matched with another quote or what the city can do. But apparently there's a need to add another 200 amps so that when everything's down there in the, during fisherman's picnic, or even perhaps when we have music down there, I don't know if the 200 amps that we have is enough. I don't know. Mike might know, and maybe you've talked to Dave about this already. I don't know, but I just,
Yeah.
as a,
I think what's the role of the Utilities Commission in this conversation might be the way to go today on
right,
that.
right,
And just the Utilities Commission looks at the outlets and the connection to the park as a customer, like the campground as a customer. And
Yeah.
we don't typically do the work behind the meter for a customer. That's the simple view of it. The question that you're asking about what can city staff do to help, then utility staff regularly assists with excavation projects, whether it's a utility project or somebody else's project, because they're our most experienced operators. And so there's a possibility that we could use some utility staff to assist with that trench. Currently, Dave and I think it's probably best not to use city staff to do that. It'd be a pretty complex place to dig with a lot of underground stuff in the park right now. But we're open to the idea, and we'll keep looking at it and figure out what's the best way to do it. We still think it's worth spending a little more time evaluating the current plan for how much power and where, and make sure that makes sense to us before we start digging holes. So, but we'll
Right.
have everything ready to go either way by the time that the fisherman's picnic is going to happen.
okay. Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up. Like, I do not know the details where the power needs to be or where it's even coming from. I don't know where
Yeah.
the line, if it's even, if what's there is, adequate to add more, uh, adjoining outlets or not. That's not even, I'm not, I'm not,
What the
but I
What the
just thought I'd
utility
bring
is
it up.
providing is we've got primary power to a transformer in the middle of Harbor Park, and we've got plenty of. There's no way you could use as much capacity as we can provide there
Okay.
for Harbor Park needs. So this is
So the
really
main-
just an electrician question: is the service sized adequately? Are the outlets sized adequately? Is the system designed that way? And that's not really what our line workers work. They don't do that kind of stuff.
No, yeah, no, I know that. I just thought,
We dig holes.
placement.
We bury wire,
Yeah.
and that's a big part of the
Right.
project. So yeah.
right. That's kind of what I thought. Okay.
But
Well, anyway, I just thought I'd bring it up. It was a concern, and sounded like it was an issue last summer. And as more and more things come in there and hook up and do what they do for that, uh, um, consolidated weekend, there's bound to be issues if we're underpowering stuff. And it seems to be a need to at least seriously look into it. That's all. So,
Yeah, and what
Yep.
the park board looked at, that plan will handle it. So we know that we have a plan that can get this done. We just want to make sure
Okay.
that isn't too much or it's in the right place, and just spend a little more time making sure that we like the strategy before we go with it. But we're confident that we've got something that'll work for them.
okay, good. Well, that's all
who does plan that then?
that's all.
If it's not the city utility,
The park, really, like what, or the city, like what, this is a city outlets, right? In a
Right.
city
Yeah.
park. And so it's just like at the campground, the park board talks about, well, how big of service do we want to provide campsite number 20?
yeah.
And in this case, it's Harbor Park. Well, how big of a service do we want to put in those outlets? So that's a park board conversation. Who does the planning?
Yeah, like do they
Typically,
hire a consultant or
we'll
what?
hire an electrician to help with a question like that.
Yeah, like who, like an electrician. I mean,
Any
we have
local
electricians.
electrician can handle that question.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Can help
Yeah,
us.
But our
someone
guys
can.
Our guys are not qualified to do that's considered low voltage. You know, electricians can't work on the voltage that our guys work on. And we're not allowed to do the wiring that they do. So that meter is kind of that crossover where we stop and they start.
I see. But the concern that was brought up is that there's not enough power for like all the food trucks and whatever
Right.
else
If
down
we've
there.
got,
Right.
you know, a bunch of 20 amp
Right.
connections and people want to plug their 50 amp truck into it,
Yeah,
or even, you know, a multitude of trucks that are fine in the outlets, but when they're all running at the same time, it's too much for the 200 amp service.
yeah.
And that's happened last year.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
So what happens? A fuse blows or something?
yeah.
Yep. It goes down and then they got to reset it, and yeah.
Yeah.
It's under amped for what's actually hooking up at that particular moment. So
There's just been a lot of growth in the
Right.
size of connection
Yeah.
that wasn't really anticipated 20 years ago. When
It's
we
got to be
installed it.
food trucks mainly, right? I don't know what
Well,
else.
yeah,
it-
Right.
mainly. Yeah.
and a lot of these food trucks, if they're not using propane or gas, they're using electricity. So those types of trucks require a lot more amperage than the guy who has everything running on propane. So I guess that's part of the problem too, I guess, you know, so. Okay, well, that's all I have. I guess I want to thank Scott Warner for all the good work he's doing at the plant. I'm glad that he's finding all these things and working on them. It makes things work better for the city. Thank him for that,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yep.
That's
Agreed.
all I have. So I guess the meeting can be adjourned.
I'll move to adjourn.
Yep.
I think he just adjourned it.
Wait.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right. See you, Craig.
Yep. Yep. Bye-bye.
Will we ever see